Welcome to the new JFK Show number 164. JFK 163 will be out right behind this one. They both feature Judy Baker. Tonight we've got Jim Fesser, Larry Rivera, myself, and our rock star of JFK Research. We've got Judy Baker. Glad to hear your eyes are much better. In fact, I had trouble with my eyes earlier. And
it's dreadful when it happens, yeah.
Yeah, so look, we've got a lot to cover, so we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you and let you work the screen share. And Judyth's got a lot of stuff for us tonight, including stuff on the pains, the real pain in the JFK community.
Yeah, the problem with the pains.
Yeah.
Well, the information I have is going to be published in September in our book called Kennedy and Oswald, The Big Picture. And we have found some interesting information about the pains. Actually, most of this is available online. It's just, from released records and from the Warren Commission reports and all kinds of things. What we didn't have is putting it all together. It's all scattered. When you put it together, and with what Lee told me, it's just stunning what I've been able to find out, and I'd like to share that with you. For example, as you know, the Paines are supposed to be wonderful people. Quakers. Now, what are Quakers, folks? Come on, give me some answers. Do they like guns and rifles?
No.
No, of course, they're pacifist, nonviolent. They're dedicated to peaceful relations and so forth.
Yes, Ruth Paine is on record as saying that she wouldn't even allow her little boy to have a toy gun.
A toy gun, yes.
Christopher.
Not even a toy gun, right. Now, why is this important? Because we're going to talk about, first of all, what the Paines did to Lee Oswald, which is, to me, so unconscionable. I'm going to be reading from the book in some of these cases so that you can understand. I've called the first one the clean blanket. Excuse me. I'm going to show you, here's the Paine garage. Here it comes. And, oops, let's see what I can do here.
Yeah, then go to full screen.
All right. This is the Paine's garage. Now, this is a kind of a fuzzy photo, but even in this, you can see trash and junk. This is after the police had already been looking at things there, and they'd taken the pictures, and I would say it's been ruffled through pretty well. But what I want you to notice is that that floor is not clean, and that floor leads to the outside. And when you went in there, can you see my little?
Yeah, we can see your arrow.
Good. Well, that is a table saw. Next to the table saw, down here is where they said the rifle was with the blanket around it, okay? Right there. They had to move on it, step on it. They were making things. I'm going to read to you what they were making.
Who keeps a table saw in their garage?
Well, they were making big blocks. She called them blocks, and everybody thought these were children's blocks. It turns out these were 5-foot-long wooden boxes. She was lacquering. She went in after midnight, the night of Thursday night, the night before the assassination. Says she found the light on. I don't believe her. But at any rate, she said, oh, I guess someone had been here before me. She looked down and noticed the blanket. Now that blanket, we find out, is what's supposed to have held the rifle. So we're going to talk about that. Because that blanket happened to be Lee Oswald's little girl's favorite blanket. Now, keep that in mind. Now, what are we looking at? We're looking at, I'm going to show you the blanket up close. Here's a, whoops, sorry, have to get rid of that.
Hey.
Okay, so what we're going to show here, now notice this, can you see this blanket very well?
Yes, we can see fine.
All right, nobody took this thing to the dry cleaners. Okay, this was on the floor supposedly with lots of wood shavings because they were making these great big panels, and they were, and I'm going to read you a quote. Mrs. Paine, Michael did cut something occasionally on the saws. Indeed, I did too. I like to make children's blocks. I'm trying to think when I last used the saw. And McCloy says, did you use the saw while the blanket was on the floor? Mrs. Paine, yes, I believe so. Mr. McCloy, you had to step over the blanket to do that? And she says, or around it, or around it. But in the course of your use of the saw, you never had the necessity or the occasion to readjust the blanket or move it out of the way. And she says, no. So she says she was lacquering wooden blocks the night before the assassination. How interesting that she does this after everybody goes to sleep. How more interesting that we know that just before she went in there, she and Marina were folding clean clothes that had been hanging up on the line. Now, this blanket doesn't look like it's been on the floor there for 55 days. There's not show me where the sawdust is. Let's look at a black and white photo now so that you can understand. Here we go. Look at this one.
Mhm.
Again, and now that speck is on my screen, I think. But anyway, I wish we could get it bigger, but you can see that it's
Roll the
not.
mouse. Roll the mouse. Oh.
It doesn't get any bigger.
Okay.
But anyway, you can see it. Now, that blanket is not a blanket that's been on the floor for 55 days with sawdust and everything all over it. That's very important, I think, to understand. Let's go and get something else. So there's the garage again. Okay. And that, now here's the other part. Lee Oswald was there for 45 days. Do you really think that he would have left his rifle on the floor in full view of everybody for 45 days?
There were children running around. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. He would have taken it out of there. Why? They are Quakers. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further here. Now, how did the rifle get there? Now, men, you can answer. You're smart men. You can answer that one, can't you? How did the rifle get into the Payne's garage? All right, let's look at it. That rifle supposedly had been purchased in March and delivered in April of '63 before Lee Oswald went to New Orleans. Now they're all getting ready to he's getting ready to get on the bus, they said, and Ruth Payne shows up and says, look, let Marina stay with us, you know, don't put her on this was such a setup because in the book we go into detail so you can tell that this was already prearranged. So Ruth Payne puts everything in her car that they were going to take to New Orleans. And Lee just takes his, he had 2 or 3 sea bags. I saw 2 of them, and some boxes. And he put those in the bus. You know, they have a storage area. Off he goes to New Orleans. The rifle was not with Lee Oswald. I know that for a fact because I saw everything that was first that was, you know, that he got out of the bus station. He kept them in the bus terminal, a lot of stuff, and the rest of it he put over at his aunt and uncle, Charles Stute Moretz. And so she had the sea bags and some other stuff. And they questioned her, did you see any rifle? Those sea bags were too small, too short to hold the rifle. Now, what's interesting is that Lee Oswald showed me his cameras. From the very beginning, I've always said, I saw his stereo realist 3D camera, and I saw his Sierra 2 Russian camera, and finally his Minox. So he had 3 cameras that I knew about. What's important about this, there was no Imperial Reflex cheap plastic junky camera. Lee's Sierra took wonderful pictures. Even this very poor picture, this is a photo of the photo taken by the police, okay? Here's what his Sierra could do. Let me show you. Get this out of the way. So this is a bad blow up. He was taking good panoramic views, and they were beautiful. This is a poor example. But George and Mohrenschildt noticed what he could do and mentioned it. And what's important about this is that the Sierra would take really great black and white photos, whereas the Imperial Reflex would not. Now, a lot of people thought that the 3D stereo realist belonged to Ruth Payne, but it did because they saw these slides. And the realist would make double slides to make 3D photos. Lee was taking 3D photos, and I have here in the manuscript of the book, okay? Can you see that?
Yep.
In the manuscript of the book, we show that Marina Oswald identified the stereo realist camera as the one that Lee Oswald took to Japan with him. Now that camera went on sale just before Lee went into the Marines. It went on sale because the Polaroids came out, and that was faster, you know, and it lost favor because you needed to have, you had to make 2 sets of slides to make the 3D. So it was on sale, Lee got one, he told me about it. And then he took that, which I did not know, he didn't tell me that, but we have Marinas telling the Warren Commission of the FBI, excuse me, that he took that to Japan and took photos with it. Why is this important? Because she said when he came back and he was ready to go and defect, you know, and join the USSR, go over there, she said this is her first version before the FBI pressured her. She said that is the camera that she gave to his brother Robert, the stereo realist camera. Now we have I'm going to show you this. Here is the Dallas police.
Yeah, go ahead and hit full screen again. Screen.
Huh?
Yeah, go ahead and hit screen share again.
Can you see it?
No, not anymore. Go ahead and hit screen share once more.
Well, here.
Yeah, drag your mouse and hit that little green button. It says screen share.
I don't see the green button from here. I'm
You
sorry.
have to scroll your mouse across the screen, though.
There isn't one.
I mean, your arrow.
Put your cursor down at the bottom and you'll get the menu bar, Judyth.
Right.
Okay, there it is. All right. But I thought you were seeing, you haven't seen the other photos I showed you?
No, we were.
We saw the others and then it switched to you, Judyth. You came off of the screen share.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay.
That's just
All
fine.
right, now you can see this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, you'll see the Sarah 2 at the top. That's USSR. The next was an Ansco flash assembly in leather case. And a lot of people, see, this is what Ruth Payne made lots and lots of slides from. It was just it was a Kodak camera, all right, with a flash on it. That did not belong to Lee Oswald, that belonged to her. And then the Mixox is the Minox, you know, it's a typo. But there it is. And then it says the camera, the stereo realist. So notice that number 378 at the top is the Suera. You've got the 378 at the bottom, the stereo realist, because they were together. They were found together, all right? Then you have 375. Before that was the Mixox, so-called. Notice, if you will, let's see if I've got that, yeah, that we don't have a number for the Ansco flash. You notice that?
Mm-hmm.
That's because it didn't belong to Lee Oswald, okay? That belonged to the Payne. See that? So they knew that belonged to the Paynes. All right.
It got mixed in, right?
No, they just listed everything they picked up from the garage.
Right, yeah.
But if it was, but obviously she said, wait a minute, that's my camera. So they didn't put it in as a possession of Oswald's, like they did the Christmas cards and the alien registration cards. You see the others. So you see the ones that belong to Lee Oswald, the Mixox, all right, the realist. And that's the camera that Marina said that Lee gave to his brother. It wasn't the Imperial Reflex. That didn't happen till a couple days later. When they said, what are we going to do? All right. Now, I'm going to read to you.
So Judy, so basically what you're saying is that you cannot trace an Imperial Reflex camera to the Oswalds, correct?
Absolutely not. And although they said it was the Oswalds, let me explain. That camera did not show up in any of the police searches. Now, what happens, and we talk about in the book, we know that Marina had an affair at the Six Flags with the manager there, and he's gone into detail that she then moved to Robert Oswald's, and he said she had relations with Robert. But what we do know is that Robert drove her to Lee's grave. It's about like 6 weeks after Lee's death, okay? And while she's there, I think she was crying. He puts his arm around her. He's trying to comfort her. It looks real bad. All of a sudden, he stopped defending his brother. He stopped saying that his brother was innocent, and suddenly he is saying, oh, my brother did it. Then he says, my brother gave me the Imperial reflex camera.
That's disgusting what he did.
It is so disgusting.
Disgusting.
Here's the other, yeah, and thank you for saying so. It is really disgusting because Marina herself said it was the stereo realist, and that's what I saw. He had these cameras packed together, the stereo realist and the swear, just like they're numbered the same because they were found together the same.
But
Same.
not only because of the camera, but because of the way he throws Lee under the bus.
Well, I'm sure there was a big pot of money. They had to get the camera into the mix somehow, and Robert was a convenient instrument for that purpose.
They did not have the camera. They had these photos, but we're going to get into that, and you're going to be shocked when I tell you what I found out. Because this camera doesn't show up. They've got these photos, but they don't have the camera. They've got the backyard photos. And first of all, they got Marina to say that she took them. They really pressured her. And later, you know, she tried to get out of it. She had to say it under oath that she took the photos. Later, she said, well, I took them from a different direction. She tries to get out of it. Now, here's the sad part. To me, it's such a betrayal, all right? Because Lee Oswald's brother, if Lee really wanted back this cheap camera when he had these really good cameras, for heaven's sakes, why didn't Lee want his stamp collection back? But we find that Robert Oswald has sold stamp after stamp. He sold them all. And then they got caught, a lot of them got cut into quarter pieces. I have a quarter piece, for example, myself. You know, relic number 77. Or whatever.
You know, as you're selling them off as Lee Oswald memorabilia, buy a stamp that once was collected by Lee Oswald for $100.
He actually, Robert started that collection, then he gave it to his little brother when he went off to the Marines, and Lee filled up the rest of it. And he was very proud of what he did.
But what he was doing was selling them off as Lee Oswald memorabilia, right, to the highest bidder.
All of them, even though some of them actually were collected by him originally. Yeah. So we have this interest in making money off of his brother, and it's so sad. He wrote this book called A Brother's Burden, where, you know, he just slams into Lee all over the place.
Well, he's been turned. I mean, you know.
Oh. So,
as long as he's protesting his innocence, there's reason to think the man had some integrity. As soon as he's converted to the opposite view, it's obvious he does not.
Well, now, here's what's interesting. If I went through the book, and I'm going to go faster so we get this done.
Well, but mind you, we won't be able to finish tonight, I'm sure. We want to bring you back, Judyth, especially because I have an additional commitment tonight. So this will be an abbreviated version, but cover as much as you can.
Okay, so what we have here is, first of all, I'm a witness about, and I've always said that the stereo camera belonged to Lee. Now, as going through, there's a site called Kennedy and King online, and we have a really good researcher there who combed through a lot of what Ruth Payne was saying. But I'm going to read to you something that you're going to I want you to think about this in practical terms. She is supposed to be a Quaker and doesn't like guns or rifles or anything. And when the police come, I want to show you that she shows knowledge that she should not have had. Mr. Jenner says, how many police officers came, to the house? And she said there were 6 altogether, and they were busy in various parts of the house. Also, she said, come in, I've been expecting you. How about that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, of all the whole world, why would she expect that? Does she think that this was a violent man? If he's a violent man, why did she let him stay or come around? Now, so the officer asked me in the garage, did Lee Oswald have any weapons or guns? She says she talked to Marina, and Marina said yes. That Marina had, when she was going to, about 2 weeks after, or between 1 and 2 weeks after they arrived from New Orleans, because first that rifle was supposed to have gone to Irving, and then it was taken all the way to New Orleans, and then back from New Orleans, all in the station wagon, the Payne station wagon. Nobody saw it. You know, it was wrapped in the blanket. How could anybody see it? Oh, come on. The blanket was very soft and easily, it was a baby blanket. It was thin. Now, the one they have now on display in Irving at the Payne residence, it's a museum now, is a thicker blanket, and it's rolled up. It's not tied at both ends like it was originally shown in evidence. And they have a cardboard thing inside. If they had actually put a rifle in there, you'd feel it when you picked it up, or even a fake rifle. So we have the intelligent Michael Payne, who's he's a physics specialist, and he's working on Bell helicopter there, creating things. And he says, oh, I picked it up a couple of times. I thought it was camping equipment. Anyway, Marina, she says she was looking.
That's such a blatant falsehood. You can't pick up a blanket with a rifle and not realize it's a rifle. Yeah, I mean, that's just absurd.
I mean, his IQ is not 90, It's not double digit. Okay. So this man's a real piece of work, and I would love to confront them. They don't dare sue me, because of the things I'm telling you is all on record. So we have her saying, oh yeah, here's what I did. She says, get this. Was the blanket roll on the floor at the time? Mrs. Payne says, she indicated the blanket roll on the floor very close to where I was standing. As she told me about it, I stepped onto the blanket roll. Now think of that. I'm reading this. Consider what she has done. Marina says there's a rifle inside the blanket, and at that, the Quaker woman, who supposedly abhors guns, steps onto the blanket within which should be the deadly weapon, right? Who would do such a thing? What if it was loaded? What if she broke something? In fact, Ruth Payne stepped on the blanket to show that she knew it was empty. Think about that. Yes. So, Mr. Jenner, this might be helpful. You had shaped that up yesterday, the blanket. I'll just put it on the floor. Mrs. Payne, and she indicated to me that she had peered into the roll and saw a portion of what she took to be a gun. She knew her husband to have a rifle. And I then translated this to the officers, that she knew that her husband had a gun that he had stored in here. And Mr. Jenner says, were you standing on the blanket when you advised? Mrs. Payne, when I translated, I then stepped off of it, and the officer picked it up.
Judyth, actually, if you go off a screen share, then we can see you better on the whole screen when you're not looking at an image. So
okay, well, all right, okay, like that,
right?
Okay, so there we have the woman steps onto the blanket. How did she know that there was no rifle in there?
Must be a very awkward thing to step on a blanket that had a rifle in it, because it's irregular. It would twist your foot. You could, there are any number of reasons why this would be very odd.
I mean, what if you did, it's only Marina saying a rifle. What if it was something else and you stepped on it the wrong way? This woman knew the blanket was empty, and she was proving it. That meant she had looked into it, or she knew it was empty. She knew.
Now, when you say the blanket is empty, you mean it wasn't covering anything. It was just a blanket. There was nothing there.
It was rolled. It was tied on both ends with string. Only one end.
When do you think they fabricated the rolling up of the blanket and tying it with string?
I believe it was the night before. This is a very clean blanket. She had been doing laundry. Marina later says it was little Junie's favorite blanket. And Marina also testifies that the little kids were running around in the garage there. And
this blanket, Judyth, looks much too small to have held a rifle rolled up within it with a string tied. I mean, that seems ridiculous.
Hey, Jim and
actually,
Judith.
they have photos of it. And you can see that it indeed could have held the rifle if you really stretch it around. But there's no way to even go around more than twice. You could obviously feel it if you picked it up. Yes?
Is this the same rifle where they found pubic hairs that then later they had to compare?
It's the same blanket, yeah. Pubic hairs.
And Dean, are you also going to cover the file cabinets that were also found in that garage?
What's he doing with his rifle that yields pubic hairs on the rifle?
On the blanket.
Well, there were no pubic hairs on the rifle. Now get this, there was not one fiber from the blanket on the rifle, yet it had cosmoline on it. You know what that is, Jim?
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, it would have been picked up fibers right and left, or dust particles, or sawdust, or whatever. The story becomes more and more preposterous.
All right, so anyway, Lee Oswald is supposed to have been in town for 45 days, lets the kids, his own little kids, running around, they're going to play with a rifle. Come on. Those little kids were running around inside the garage. We have them on record. Okay, Marina Oswald saying they were playing with wooden barrels in there. When she says barrels, I think it's these big 5-foot-long boxes that Ruth Payne has created. They're playing with all this. They're running around the garage. You think ever that Marina Oswald, if she had actually done this, do you think that she would have let those, she would say to her husband, get these out of here. They're Quakers. If they know about this rifle, I'm in trouble. Or at least she'd pick it up so her own daughter wouldn't play with it. All right? So, and put it to side. No, it's left there on the floor for 55 days. We're supposed to believe this. Or it's just, and Ruth Payne steps on. Now, that's just the blanket. I've got so much to tell you. How much time do we have?
About
you got up to the top of the hour. You have, you have 25 more minutes.
All right.
Yeah, about this much sand left.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm keeping track of the time, Gary. The sand is off tonight.
Now, I'm going to show you some stuff here. The next thing is, how did they find the Imperial reflex camera? Now, remember, Robert Oswald had not seen his brother since Thanksgiving, November of 1962, when he saw him for one day. Robert is trying to tell us that Lee got the camera back at that time, okay, as if he needed it when he had these other cameras. But let's say that they had time to do that. Now, here's the point. We have Robert Oswald telling us that all of a sudden, now get this, Ruth Payne calls him and says, oh, Robert, will you come over? I think maybe you should look and see if there's anything that belongs to you, in our garage. This is how they so-called found the Imperial reflex. She says, I think we found your camera. It doesn't say that he found it. She says, we think we have found it. She comes up with the Imperial reflex. Gus Rose and the others that had been, there were three. There was a policeman from Irving, and there were three others that had gone through the garage over and over again, never found this Imperial reflex camera. Now let's look at this camera, okay, so that you know what I'm talking about. Here we go. Here it is.
Yeah, go ahead and screen share again.
Can you see it? Oh.
Yeah, hit screen share for us. You're getting good.
All right, just a minute. Let's see. All right, I'm trying. Can you see it now?
There it is. Now hit full screen again. There you go. You're getting good.
This camera is made of plastic. It's all beat up. Shaney Felt, who looked at it, he said he had to actually clean it up because it was filthy lens. It was all dirty. And
that's tampering with evidence, for crying out loud.
Oh, of course.
He had to clean it up?
Sure, yes. Then you have no fingerprints on it.
This is like reworking the Mannlicher Carcano before experts would,
Yeah, Judy, isn't that the kind you have to lift up the top and look like put it by your stomach? And
you have to have it at waist level. You can't put it up before your eyes. And yet, of course, Marina originally said that she took pictures, that the only pictures she ever saw or the only cameras she ever saw were the Realist originally and the Sierra. Okay? She didn't mention the Minox, but Lee kept that Minox to himself, very small. I got to see something.
Did she ever give any indication of having opened the top and looking down in order to focus?
Absolutely not. No, she did not know. She actually showed, they said, did you put it up to your eyes? And she said, yes.
Right, I love it.
Yes.
She actually tilted and took a photograph of the sky.
That's right. So there we go.
Yeah, so the idea that there's 3 photographs with every blade of grass in the same spot is impossible.
Now, of course. Here's the other part. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go back now. You can see me now or not?
Yeah.
Well, you got to come off a screen share to get you full screen. That's what we.
Shoot. Let's see. I'm trying here. No.
Don't hit that.
Just hit the screen share button there, Judyth.
Well, it's gone again. On my screen, I don't see it.
You got to pull your cursor down, and then it shows up on the menu bar.
No, it's actually saying sign in.
Yeah, you're staying inside of the frame, Judyth. You want to go all the way down to the bottom.
The X. I think you got to hit the X right there.
Stop share. It says I am sharing.
All right, now just keep going. Keep going.
All right, can you see me?
Yeah.
No, you go ahead. You got the photographs now. Go ahead. Go with them.
Okay.
Open it. Hit the double arrow there to go full screen.
All right.
Judyth.
Well, what I want to do next, though, is so important. I want you to see this. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Oh. I may not be able to open this one. I hate it when it does this. There we go. All right. Now, can you see this one?
Yep.
Michael Payne.
Who is that there? This is Friday night.
That's not Michael Payne?
That is Michael Payne. He looks an awful lot like Lee Oswald.
He's holding the blanket right there, of course, with a rifle wrapped inside.
He is actually, there's whatever is going on here is.
Yeah, he looks happy. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, he sure looks pretty happy. You're right, Larry.
Here's what he was saying to them that night. They showed him that night. Here's what they did. Okay, can you see it now? Or?
Yeah, of course we can see it.
Okay, all right. What they showed him that night was one of the backyard photos. Now, get this. You could only see a teeny part. I'm going to show you this backyard
Judyth,
photo.
you trying to get to the backyard photo. Judyth, hit the X up there in the upper right-hand corner because you've already got them up. Yeah, there's one of them.
This is the one I want you to see.
All right.
This is the one he saw. I want you to see how much of this house can you see in this photo. There's some of the stair, and you can see a little bit right here. See that?
Yeah.
According to Michael Payne, that was enough for him to identify where the house was located.
That's ridiculous. We've, of course, been there. Larry, Gary, and I were there. We went into the backyard.
He said, I could recognize this because I saw.
You couldn't possibly locate where this house was from this photograph. I mean, that's just absurd.
Well, I found over a dozen houses that were built similarly at that time that have the same thin clapboards boards all over Dallas. And for him to say, he told them the address. Okay, because this is the Elsbeth residence,
That's the first place we visited when we went to Dallas that time.
Yep.
2014.
Right.
Before we went to the hotel, Gary told us right
He told them the night before that this is where Lee Oswald was staying. He'd only been there once, and it was at night, according to his first statement. Years later, he will say he also saw the rifle, but we don't count that because he certainly said he saw no rifle in his initial interviews with the FBI and the Warren Commission. Now, if that's all we can see, he tells them the address. Now, here's what's interesting about this photo as well. I'm going to just close that up. Because Michael Payne sees this photograph the night before the photograph is officially found in the garage. It kind of messed up their timeline.
Well, Jim Mars, we did a show recently where Jim Mars was talking about him interviewing the Hesters and them seeing a composite of the backyard photo without anybody in it, before it was even processed, before it even it was published the next day.
All right, now
they sure were sloppy about this, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, they had to do some of this in a hurry. They only had 6 weeks to mess this up. Here's the thing about this camera, though, that's really important. You're not going to believe this, but did you know that some other photos showed up with this imperial reflex? Now, here's what Lee told me. He said, I have taken no photographs of Marina Oswald, of Marina, or his child since they had arrived back, since they came to New Orleans, because I was posing as Marina. He didn't want any photos taken of Marina. Now, so I told everybody, I defy you to find any photos of Marina or of baby Junie, and I expected there would be none, because that's what Lee told me. Imagine my amazement when we find pictures of Marina. I'm hoping I can show you some of those.
How can Marina maintain that she took those photographs? That's ridiculous.
Well, wait a minute, but these photographs are different. First of all, we have these photos that were taken with the imperial reflex that shows the backyard photos, okay, with Lee's head pasted onto them. We can go into that in more detail, and we do in the book. But here's what's amazing. Well, they didn't have any other photos. Now, we have records that Marina had a stack of family photos, and they made many copies. So she had about 150, most of them copies of what she already had. To this, they suddenly add, right after finding the imperial reflex, right after finding it, remember that was weeks later, suddenly they add 300 plus photos that belong to the Paynes to the stack for her to go through. And finally, that's when we find more photos taken with the imperial reflex camera. They belonged to the Paynes.
The phantom camera.
For example, this one of little Junie. This is definitely the yard that Lee Oswald was in. Now let me show you another picture of Junie. Here's another. Can you see that? I'll blow this up. Now Ruth Payne was asked to make a diagram of the apartment there. She shows the sidewalk and everything. She shows where the strawberries were growing. Okay. She shows this complicated sidewalk. She shows all kinds of details, but she only shows the porch and a little bit of the living room. Obviously, what she was showing was the front yard. Now, why was she drawing just the front yard and showing where the street was? Because she knew this by heart. You could not draw that any other way. Why would she know it by heart? I want to tell you right now, these photos were found with the Paynes photos. Now, when Ruth Payne came and dropped off Marina on the 11th of May, all right, and they were packing everything in there, she stayed until she stayed. That was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. She didn't leave till Tuesday morning. All day Monday, Lee Oswald was at work. What was Ruth Payne and what was Marina doing? We have two photos of Marina with little Junie, and they're in the book.
That's the Irving address, correct?
Right here, you're looking at 4905 Magazine Street.
Oh, that's in New Orleans, right?
Okay. Now, here's what the thing, though. I was shocked because Lee said I would never do any photos there. And we have two of Marina, which I could bring up, but I don't have time. But the point is, here's what's important. I was shocked because Lee said he didn't take any photos. So I said, wait a minute, I've got to look into this. This is impossible. First, I find out that these photos only show up when the Paynes, over 300 photos, are added to the stack that Marina already has. Second,
that's it.
There's a plant. You see this plant blooming here? Right here on the side? I was there. Remember, I was there. That plant was blooming in May. It was not blooming in June, and it wasn't blooming in July. what's important about, you see how long the grass is? That's because it hasn't all dried out yet from the heat.
So then obviously with Ruth who took this picture, because Michael wasn't in New Orleans.
Michael wasn't there, but Ruth, get this. By the way, notice how overexposed it is and everything else. Very poor photo. Now, here's what's interesting about this photo, besides the fact that little Junie is in it. Lee Oswald is at work, and Ruth is on record as saying that they had been bickering and fighting all weekend, and they weren't getting along at all. Now, do you think that Lee Oswald would come out there and take photos of, I say there are two of Marina with Junie as well? No, I don't think so. But the point is that these photos did not show up until we get the Payne photos. And there they are.
It's a very odd photo, Judyth, because it doesn't seem to be focused. It doesn't seem to have a purpose.
Oh, but that's because it's a bad camera. Here's what's going on, though. Remember, just a couple months earlier, the backyard photos were taken. Now think about that. Lee told me that he was worried that he was under suspicion, remember, as early as July. Now I see that these backyard photos were taken with the same camera. Here's the other. There are also a couple of photos of General Walker's backyard also taken. Think about this, because Lee would never have kept any evidence to show that he'd ever been in Walker's backyard. He wouldn't have. But these show up with the Payne's photo collection.
Larry, you want to interject?
Yeah, you can microanalyze, each individual picture and prove. I'm sure nowadays we have the technology to prove if they all came from the same camera. With
that's exactly right. Now,
these cameras add, digital fingerprints, and I'm pretty sure that it can be done.
Now, a couple of these photos are darker. Here's what I believe happened. She's taking the photos because they have to fill a role. The Imperial Reflex could only take 12 photos. It's really cruddy camera. Okay, 12 photos. And we find that we have 2 photos of Marina and the baby here in New Orleans. We have 2 photos of the baby by herself. That's 4. We have 3 backyard photos. That's 7. We have 2 of the...
there were actually at least 4, I think, Judyth, were there not?
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I think that was taken later because, well, we've got the Des Moines show. We can't count that because that was a photo of a photo. Yes, we have 4. Anyway, it comes up to 10. They're all in one roll. Okay?
So there are 2 more to be taken.
No, but they did get taken. They're the Walker backyard photos.
Which are intended to frame Lee for having fired it.
So this started with the Walker photos and the backyard photos, and now Ruth Payne comes with his camera, takes these photos. Now here's what's interesting. These are the last. Look at these. These are overexposed. You know why? That's the end of the roll. She puts it in her purse or whatever, and they don't, whatever she's done next, she's all summer somewhere else. So the first photos that come out of this thing are these last ones of Junie and all that. They're overexposed because they were at the end of the roll. This is a very cruddy camera. It leaks light and so on, okay? When it's
isn't it revealing that Ruth Payne would have taken any photographs? I mean, this with that camera, it's supposed to be something that Lee was taking photos of Walker and Marina taking photos of Lee. So what in the world is Ruth Payne doing with this camera?
Well, anyway, Ruth Payne calls Robert Oswald and says, hey, we have found this camera. Why don't you come over and see what else might be in the garage that belongs to you? All right.
This is just a way of planting evidence. I mean, what could be more blatant?
Of course. And what we have it all. Okay, can you see me now? Or what?
No, you have to get off of a screen share for us to see you full.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, the X.
Okay, good. We got the photo you want. Go full screen with that one.
Well, that's the other one. Well, here's what I want to show you next. Here's Ruth and Michael Payne. Aren't they sweet people? Okay.
God, they are both ugly as sin.
Well, I don't think Lisa.
Inside out.
But I have more. I mean, it's really shocking because...
I know that their daughter, apparently I read somewhere who disowned them because of their involvement in this whole thing with Lee Oswald and how they helped to frame him,
There's something else I'd like to tell you about Marguerite Oswald. So she's been neglected. First of all, there is a photo that Marina said she had that she hid in her shoe. Remember that?
Isn't that an absurd thing to do, hide a photograph in your shoe?
She was terrified. No, she was afraid they'd find it. It had been in the baby book. But Marguerite Oswald said something very interesting. She said that photo was different. She said Lee was wearing different clothes. And he held the rifle up above his head in the picture. Different clothes, and she saw it.
And different pose.
Well, guess where else that Lee Oswald we know had a shotgun in the USSR, and this is probably what that photo was about. And Marina is terrified because it shows him with a firearm, and she destroys it. But Marguerite Oswald has something else to say. Remember how I told you that Michael Payne had been at the police station the night before and saw the backyard photo there. They showed it to him. The next morning, Lee will see it before, even he will see it before it is proclaimed as found in the Payne garage. But Marguerite spent the night, Friday night, on the couch. She testified to the Warren Commission, and everybody, nobody listens to Marguerite. She's screwball, right? So we're not going to listen to her. You better listen, because
that means she knows too much. As soon as you're described as a screwball, you know too much, you saw too much, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oswald is trying to sleep on the couch. Says she can hear Marina's muffled cries. Marina is crying in the bedroom, okay? She can hear the Paynes whispering. She says at about 2 o'clock in the morning, Michael Payne comes creeping out past her, goes and opens the door and goes in. Later she knows the garage. Next morning, the police find the backyard photos. He was convinced that's when Michael Payne planted them in the garage. Okay? I believe her, because first of all, the police had one photo. That's the one they showed Lee Oswald the next day. One photo. Well, that photo, there were others, but apparently that one was pulled to show to Lee Oswald to try and convince him. Look, here's your photo. He says, no, that's my head pasted on. I will prove to you, that that's what it was. Of course it was. Michael Payne goes for some reason into the garage, and the next morning the police, on the third search of the place, they find these photos in Lee's sea bag, which they've already been in, and they find some other photos and collect them. Now, Michael Payne, I'm going to show you another picture here.
Judyth, I apologize. This evening's a bit disorganized because of Charlottesville. I got booked for a lot of shows, and I hadn't put two and two together.
Somebody's got to say that. You know about the ad that they put to get this should be against the law. Nobody should be able to hire actors to create crowds. This should be against the law.
Well, all this has happened since.
Yeah.
Well, that's another story. But yeah, we have a Craigslist ad for Tulsa, for example, for an event between the 27th and the 30th. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Judyth, here's the thing. Now that you got the hang of it, if you put everything into a PowerPoint, then we can get the PowerPoint, go through the systematic order of the photographs that you want to present. We can do a rapid review of what you did tonight and go more deeply into where else you want to go next week, same time, same place. And, I know it must be, very early in the morning, your locale, right?
Yeah, it's 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning. So this is an imposition on you.
You're a champion.
Yeah.
Look at this gorgeous camera. Do you think that Lee Oswald would go and pick up a plastic piece of junk when he had a camera like this?
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And calling it Imperial Reflex makes it sound like it's an imposing camera when, as you observed, it's made of plastic and it's a piece of junk.
All right, well, look, tonight we're going to go ahead and close it down. We will have Judy Baker part 3 next week, and we'll have part 1 and part 2 up tonight. All right, this has been the new JFK Show number 164. We'll see you next week.